If you're new here, thanks for stopping by. Today I'm going to show you how to build a riser. My intention's been to lower the barrier to entry to bow making and archery for those who are interested. And with that mission, it's led me to do different forms of content to help people. This right here is video 3 of a 6 or 7 video series on how to build this awesome 3-piece wood takedown bow. So to add as much value as possible, I wrote an instructional book on how to build this. Today we're covering riser profile and shaping. This book is the step-by-step with a ton of photos, infographics with measurements. It breaks it down to make it easy. Not necessary. You could build this bow from these videos. Want to give the option of both. Shatterproof Archery also has a kit of how to build this bow. Links in the description. That's my pitch. If you want this stuff, I'm here to give it to you. If you don't want it, enjoy this video on how to shape the riser. Hey guys, great news. I got 1 limb, 2 limb curing. Now with the Type on 3, it only has to sit for an hour and then you can work with it. You just don't want to stress it for 24 hours. This has been sitting for 4 hours. So we're gonna go ahead and take the riser and start building it as the limbs cure. I've tested out a bunch of different riser designs and here's some. This one here, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. But this one is the one I really like. And we're carrying these principles to this. This one's the same as well. So I drew this to help you out. But you'll notice I've got some red lines and then 2 blue lines. We're gonna pay attention to the blue lines. On one side of our block, it's gonna be flat. And you'll see this bottom side, it'll be flat all the way across. So we can measure from this flat line. We're gonna come 1 inch up here, 1.5 inch up here. It's gonna be 3 inches along that bottom line where this mark comes up. That's gonna establish the proper angle for the limb to come off the riser. That's all the importance. 1.5, 1, 3. I have built this 2 different ways. One is with a 16-inch length. The other is with a 14-inch length. You can do whatever you would prefer. These shapes are up to you. Something I like to do is that the depth of the handle is gonna be in line with where the limb comes off the riser. So if you put a straight edge across, you'll see right coming into the depth of the handle is right where the limbs are coming out. That's gonna make sure that this style of bow is extra smooth. So we've got our block. Let's flatten one side first. 3 inches, 1, 1.5. The last thing I did not mention is where to make the center line. So at 7 inches, that's my center. I'm gonna go ahead and draw this across. What do we want the center to be? You could make the center the arrow shelf, but what works for the smoothest shooting bow is to make the center the deepest part of the throat of the handle. So I can take these marks like we discussed earlier, and now I know I want the handle deepest part to be right in there. And I'm okay with it going a little further that way, so I'll go about a 1/4 inch further in this way. Okay, so that is the deepest part of the handle, which means the arrow rest is gonna be above it, which means I'm just gonna kind of eyeball how I would want that handle to feel. Now, this might not look like anything to you, but let's bring this out this way because we're gonna have more of a forward-facing handle like that. These curves don't have to be precise. It's just personal preference, so you can take your time as you remove material. I've done this design so many times, I can eyeball it and I know what to look for and what to avoid. The other thing to notice on the layout is I purposely did this to where this chunk that's chipped out is over here, where I'm not gonna use that material. So take a look at your board, make sure if there is any imperfections or any knots you want to avoid, you want to take out this, this, and this. If this is overwhelming or feels overly complicated, I totally get that. That's how I felt when I first started building these. A first project before that could be a flat one. So you can mount your limb directly flat here and not even do any reflex in the limb, but make the limb flat, like I did here. And then you can tiller it as normal. It's a different design. I don't think it performs as good as this one, but if you want to do multiple projects, it's definitely a fun one and it still shoots pretty stinking good. Now with your choice of tools, remove everything you need. Now here's an idea to make a cool looking riser, or at least a different looking riser. So I'm taking one of my hickory risers, but I'm going to torch it. Any propane torch will work. But before you torch it, it's important to get the riser to the exact shape you want, because we're not really going to change the shape after we darken it. How I do this is I go ahead and char the entire piece. And then after it's charred fairly dark, I will use 220 grit sandpaper to sand off as much as I want or as little as I want for the look I'm going for. This gives it a nice, unique look. I really like how it turns out, and it's a fun way to give a different look to a light colored material. So when shaping a riser, there's a wide variability of preferences, but one principle that I have found true for most people is that most of us like this to come backwards. That allows you to grab the riser and roll your wrist up a little bit and find that very comfortable. So with this style, we're having a forward-facing handle and we're rolling that backside over. Everything else, as far as the exact curvature here, is going to feel better depending on your hand size and how you grip the bow. Also, there's a point right in this area that a lot of people find that the meat of their thumb, if you got a big meaty thumb, kind of like I do, it can indent there. So when I'm finishing the riser, I'll put my hand on it and really get a good feel of it, and sometimes I'll even string the bow and shoot it and see where there's undue pressure on my hand, where it's like, that doesn't feel the best. Then you just go in there with an orbital sander or a rasp to clean that up. And in the end, you end up with a really nice clean riser.